Welcome back to Building Dreams with Virtue Homes. Today we are talking with Wilson Property representatives Al and Matt. Alan and Matt will be answering all of your burning real estate questions throughout the Traralgon area. So to get started, Matt, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do?
Yeah, so Al and I are both licensed estate agents at Wilson Property. I've been doing it for 15 years now. Al's been in the game for 10 years already. Time flies. Both representing sellers in the Traralgon area and sort of a 25-minute radius of Traralgon. And we list and sell homes.
Nice. You keep it nice and local.
Yes, yeah, we do. We are branching out from a commercial perspective down Warrigal way, so we do sell a bit down Warrigal. Actually, commercially, we branch out all the way through to Mornington Peninsula, and we've got some big sales down that way.
That's quite a big radius.
Yeah, it's bigger reach on the commercial side, but our core market is definitely Traralgon and surrounding areas. Yeah.
Perfect. And yourself, Al, can you tell us a little bit about what you do?
Probably similar to Matt. So I've been in the industry for 10 years. I've probably got the unique part that I was also a builder for 30 years, so it brings a different aspect, sometimes not always good, because I probably look a bit hard at some properties, but I feel like I probably know a fair bit more of, when it comes to land selection, for instance, as far as orientation goes, etc., setbacks. People talk about potentially subdividing. I've got a foot in front, I suppose, because of my background as well. So, generally similar to Matt, we hang around the Traralgon area more so because it's just so much easier to service properly.
Yeah, perfect. Can you guys tell me a little bit more about the role that real estate agents can play when building your dream home?
Good question. The role we would play, often someone that is going to be building a house already has a home. You're going to get the occasional person that's renting and then looking to, build and move into their own home. But often someone is trading up from a property. So they're focused on selling their existing home before they even start the building journey in a lot of cases. A lot of the clients we work with, they will sell their existing home, buy a block of land, rent for 12 months while the build takes place. So I guess they're parallel industries in the sense that, we both work in the housing industry to a degree. We're primarily focused on, the marketing of a seller's home. A lot of those sellers do become home builders. So sort of feeds into
connection there.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think one of the most important things for us is to listen. I've always said that we're not out there to tell people how to do things. So if it comes to somebody that's thinking about building around Gippsland, is that listen to what's important to them, listen to areas, listen to setbacks, etc., and just giving advice along those areas as well. So, if I'm talking to the young guys, I just say you can't beat listening. When you're talking to people, you just quiet and just listen to what they've got to say.
Exactly, and you get a real insight for their journey and where they're at and what it is that they're looking for.
Yeah, absolutely.
We get asked frequently in terms of what should someone build, and I think that they've always got the fundamentals of what's on their own individual wish list in terms of we need this and that in the home to suit our needs, but people will ask us, what should we be building for resale as well?
Yeah, of course.
So, what makes sense, particularly if they're only thinking that they may be in the house for 5 or 10 years and it's not a quote unquote forever home. We get asked all the time, should I build 3 or 4 bedrooms? Should I build, this size garage? Should I have side access? And dealing with buyers every day, we know what the reoccurring pattern is in terms of what a lot of buyers want. So we can give that feedback in terms of if you're going to sell this home and achieve a great price in the future, you probably should include these features.
Yeah, really important information for people to have, absolutely. And you mentioned, Matt, about land selection. How are you able to help builders or buyers with land selection?
Yeah, so we obviously sell a fair portion of vacant land. We are heavily involved in the Franklin North subdivision here in Traralgon, but we sell land all over Gippsland, from Warragul through to Yannar through to Rosedale. When it comes to land selection, obviously a lot goes into it. Frontage is a big one. Is the frontage wide enough to suit the type of home that we want to build? You got to figure out whether someone's are they chasing acreage or are they chasing a low maintenance lifestyle? So that comes into it. And then budget. Often a lot of people want that classic, the Aussie dream 1/4 acre block, 1,000 square metres. But nowadays, is that going to fit in with the budget by the time they build a new house? And, we go through all of that with them.
Right. In a previous episode, we spoke with some of the team members about managing expectations, and it sounds like you do a little bit of that as well, about what is realistic, but also still close to achieving that dream. How closely do you guys work with Virtue and builders?
It's probably a tough question. We get a lot of questions out of the different builders. There's a different range of builders. And again, I suppose one of the obvious ones is talking about orientation and will the home work. I talk so much about site access. I talk about whether you were wanting a shed as well and how you're going to get to that shed. But the big one for me is, because I'm probably a bit older than most, is that if you're not looking to build your dream home, just think that you're building something that will be saleable down the track. So think of the back door, that if I need to change my direction and sell, that I'm building something that will be saleable in the future.
Yeah, that's a great contingency for people to have, and something that I think they might not be thinking of. So it's great that they have that. So are you able to guide customers and clients and people looking to build their dream home towards the right block in the area? Is that something that you have a hand in?
You get, it can come about in a couple of different ways. I mean, you might sometimes list a block of land that is very unique, whether that's, its location or some of the properties around it, the size or what have you. But sometimes you'll get, for example, back in COVID, there was a block in Hedges Avenue, prime real estate for Traralgon. That brings even passive buyers out of the woodwork, because all of a sudden they've got this dream blocks come up in their, dream location, and they weren't even thinking of building. And then all of a sudden they've purchased an amazing block of land, and then the journey starts there. So it can come about in many different ways. Sometimes people are a little bit more generic and they just say, hey, Matt, we want 800 square metres of land, what have you got? And we show them the full array of everything we've got for sale that fits that brief. It's different from client to client.
Yeah, of course. That makes sense. Absolutely. And how often would you say do you get people coming in already with a block or an area in mind versus people coming in with basically their laundry list is just, we want to be somewhere in the Latrobe Valley? How specific are your clients, and what stage are they at when they come to you to purchase their land?
Look, it's case by case, but I mean, a lot of the clients we work with, we've built relationships with over a decade plus, so they know that Al and I work in real estate. So naturally, if they're thinking of building a house, they will come to us for ideas. Would you agree?
Yeah, absolutely, and I agree with the case by case, because you've got your Franklin North, but then you go out of town and you've got a block of land in Ballara, for instance, and what could I do with that block of land in Ballara? And right now there's a new little subdivision out at Cowar, which is 20 minutes out of Traralgon, and all of a sudden trying to explain to people that the blocks start at 5,200 square metres, and when you get your head around that and say, well, hang on, this is different again. Or you go out to a Glengarry where things are, and I know that Virtue have got a big play out there, and it's different again. You're not right in Traralgon, you're outside, you're out 8 or 9 minutes out. Glengarry's clearly starting to move. You've got Gaston Park out at Churchill. There's some beautiful blocks of land out there. So I think the public have got some really good choices as far as where they can now select their blocks of land. But I still trying to get my own head around the smallest block being 5,200 out at Gower.
That's
good old days.
massive. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I purposely met the developer out there yesterday and requested that the blocks be pegged, because when I'm standing there trying to explain it, I'm having an agent on site in a couple of weeks' time, but trying to explain then the biggest block is 3.5 acres. In the little estate, and they're paying not a lot more than what they would in Traralgon. So, it's just another interesting concept again.
Absolutely. And do you help guide people who perhaps are looking in Traralgon but have mentioned they want bigger blocks? Do you say, hey, well, have you considered 10 minutes down the road?
Absolutely. And you have to do that, because if they're one of those people and you get some of these guys that want these super sheds and, is it going to fit with my home?
You've got to have the man cave in the backyard.
Yeah.
Shed cell houses in Traralgon.
They're not getting smaller. But yeah, absolutely. There's only so much you can fit on a block, if you're wanting a 4-bedroom, 2-bathroom home and a decent shed. So you actually have to start steering them. Had you thought about the outskirts? Had you thought of Tyres, Rosedale, like I mentioned before, Ballara or Churchill? So there's a Warrigal. It's very hard to find a decent big block down there, but they do exist. So
every now and then.
Yeah. I think it's the amount of people now, with the hospital being here in Traralgon, where the hospital is basically our biggest private employer, and a lot of those people want to be sort of within 25 minutes. So when you're talking land to them, you have to talk about the different areas, because in a lot of cases they're not aware that they exist. They're thinking just Traralgon or just Morwell or just Moe, but they actually need to be steered in those directions as well. Hayfield. Yeah, there's some good stuff out at Hayfield as well, and let's face it, Hayfield's only half an hour from here, so
it's really not that far. But you you see Traralgon on the map and you just think, well, let's stick to that area.
But a lot of these people talk about, the ones that go out of town start talking about being at home, but then being much closer to the hills or much closer to the beach. If they're down at Rosedale, they talk about being 25 minutes closer to their fishing spot. So there's a lot comes into it when they're starting to choose what's important as far as land goes. So, it's actually quite interesting, and of course you do get the generic that are happy to build a 3 or 4 bedroom home in Traralgon on 650, but there's a lot more to offer as well, for these people. So
yeah.
A lot of the people that do come to Traralgon, they kind of think that they're coming to a regional location, which they are, and they're chasing some sort of almost like rural lifestyle and setting, and then they get to Traralgon, it's actually quite suburban.
Yes.
So then all of a sudden you do have to talk about all these other areas around town that, on the outskirts, that actually do have a proper, country
that
lifestyle.
Tree change.
Yeah. They get to Traralgon, it's almost like they're back in the big smoke anyway. So
that's
some of those medical workers that have come from Sydney and they think, this is a proper tree change, and let's, get a bit of land, and and they end up in the West End of Traralgon thinking this is not what we thought. So.
This isn't the hobby farm.
No, they tend to start looking at it again. Tyres and Glengarry to Gabby, where they can be that 25 minutes. It's funny that it's 25, not 30, but they seem to want to be 25 minutes from the hospital. And I'm not just focusing on the hospital, but there is a lot of people there that we do deal with, being basically our biggest private employer now. So
that
and growing.
brings in a lot of people to the township.
Yeah. And good people. It's we've met some beautiful people that, and again, having lived here all my life, one of the things I love hearing is people moving to the area and that they love the area, and they talk about, is it safe? Well, absolutely. We've got 3 daughters and we've raised 3 daughters, and we've found it to be a great place to raise kids.
Yeah. So, and these people, they're looking to settle down and put down roots here.
That's the exciting part. I mean, there's a lot that come along and they're looking to rent, and they tend to suss out the area, and so they know nothing about Latrobe Valley or Gippsland. But the ones that it always brings a smile to my face when they say that we're actually looking to build or stay in the area, and you go, well, you must like it then. And it's really nice to hear.
Yeah, some of them come here and they rent for 12 months, 18 months, and then all of a sudden they're building. So
yeah,
it's a good sign.
Yeah, absolutely. And how often, what's the exchange rate, I want to say, between people that come to you having already selected a builder versus people that come to you with the area in mind or a block in mind, and you make the recommendations for builders in the area?
It's almost 50-50.
Yeah, it would be.
Sometimes the first call is, hey, we're building and it's already started, or we're going to start turning dirt next month or what have you. And then sometimes you get the client who, the walls are closing in on them, the kids are getting older, and all of a sudden it's, we need more space, so we're going to build. But it's a very preliminary discussion at that point. They haven't got a block and they haven't spoken to a builder. And
I think that's a classic discussion, that the one where, again, I mentioned before, we've raised 3 kids and one's nearly 40. And I just point out to people how quickly your life changes and what the needs of the kids change. So you might be thinking you need a playroom, but pretty quickly that playroom becomes an office.
Yeah,
or something.
the teenage retreat.
You need to be thinking about multi-purpose rooms rather than just naming a room. And I went through my time. It was always interesting when people would see names on a plan and they'd see cinema room, and you'd say, I didn't want a cinema room. And you say, well, you don't have to have a cinema room. You can have a lounge room. You can have a multi-purpose. It can be anything. So I thought it was really funny how people get confused by the name on plans at times.
Absolutely.
The only thing that makes it a cinema room is some reclining couches and a projector.
That's nothing actually in that space.
No,
Yeah.
it's like a study. People say, oh, it's a study, I can't use as bedroom. And you look at the size and it's got a robe and you go, well, why isn't it a bedroom?
Yeah,
so
True.
Exactly, or vice versa. Yeah.
It's a really interesting topic, and it's fun at times because you're actually dealing with people. You don't realise how raw some people are of what they're looking for, and which comes back to what I was saying before about listening. When they're talking to you, but the amount of people that don't think about things like orientation, I think's a little bit amazing. But again, that's just showing my age that once you've lived in a home which is why it comes back to building quality homes, because if you've got a quality home, you're going to enjoy it a hell of a lot more than if you haven't.
Exactly.
It's as simple as that.
Or if you've rushed through or you haven't been a part of the process, bringing it back to orientation. I grew up in a house that my parents didn't think about orientation. The builders didn't advise them. It was the darkest hovel you'll ever walk into.
Absolutely.
And it's all about education. It's all about that level of care that builders will have.
One of my biggest ones is the alfresco area, and particularly in Latrobe Valley when we get our strong winds, and it so often comes from the southwest. And I can't believe how many people don't think of that in their planning, and they go, "Oh
until
no,
the lawn chair is going away."
Yeah, we want the afternoon sun. We understand that, but you'll get the afternoon wind as well, and then you won't use the area. So they're just all interesting conversations I think to have with people, and some of them even thank you down the track, and they say, "Well, that was actually really good advice."
Yeah, or you get someone who comes into the office and they're like, "Yeah, we're going to build a house, and the house will be 21 squares, but it's 4 bedroom, 3 living, and walk-in pantry, walk-in linen." And it's like, hang on, let me look at the dimensions, and the the bedrooms are 2.2 by 2.8 or something, and it's like, no. Less is more in that regard.
That's it. Yeah,
you got 21 squares to play with. Let's take a bit out.
Yeah, absolutely. So what advice would you give to listeners when they are looking at coming and speaking to a real estate agent? What do they need to have prepared when they're considering listing their house maybe and buying that block and building that dream?
Probably trying to understand what the ultimate outcome of what they're trying to achieve, and understanding all the steps involved to get to that. Just making sure they're thinking it right through. And again, one of my big ones that I use a lot on any age group is that no question's a silly question. So I say we do this every day, you don't. Like if you're dealing with a nurse or a doctor or whatever, I say I've got no idea what you do, but I can assure you that we know a fair bit about what we're doing. So no question's a silly question, just please ask them. I must admit that brings some funny questions out, but it's a good thing to raise with people, is that just ask questions, because they're better off asking the questions than hold back.
Definitely. Yeah, definitely. And are you noticing any trends in the market currently with people listing, renting, building? What have you noticed, especially in the local area?
I think when money was cheap, so when interest rates were like 2%, there was a lot more aspirational builders. Like there's a lot more trophy homes being built, if you will. Mm-hmm. I feel like we're starting to get back to that now as well, as the cost of building has settled. Talking with a lot of clients now that are now back on track to build some forever homes and some really impressive homes, family homes.
That's exciting.
Yeah, it's great, because for a little while there it was kind of stalled from our perspective. the thing that is also beneficial to those people that are looking to upsize at the moment or upgrade is that the established housing market is actually very strong in Traralgon at the moment. I'd say the strongest we've seen it since COVID.
Oh, absolutely.
Which was, COVID was a perfect storm. We may never see those conditions again.
Almost hoping we don't, but
I don't
no
mean COVID
offense
itself.
to you.
I mean, everyone was hyper focused on housing, and money was cheap and all of those things.
That was a crazy time.
So everyone was getting a really great price for their house, but we're seeing that again, particularly in the sort of middle of the market. The average sale price in Traralgon is, just a whisker over 500K, and that's where most of the buyers are looking. That's your investors, it's your first home buyers, it's a big pool of buyers, and that market is extremely hot at the moment, which is good news for anyone that is considering selling out of a house that they may have bought in recent years and now looking at the prospect of building. They can potentially get a great price for their current home and, shorten that gap between, the existing and the new one in terms of price.
Yeah, well, there you go, listeners. Now is the time.
It's a good time.
Wonderful.
It's I totally agree with what Matt's saying. Is that right now, across all the major towns of Latrobe Valley, if the home's priced right and presented right, it will sell at the moment. No issues.
Yeah, there's no excuses for the current market.
It does have to be priced right. You can't, the public aren't silly. You can't think something's worth 500, so we'll put 600 on it. It's got to be priced accordingly. But there is a buyer for it at the moment, which is then going to, in time, reflect on the building, where people are stepping up. As we know, that's part of natural, is that you step from one to the other, and ultimately you get into a new home.
Exactly.
We can see that definitely changing again now.
Yeah, really exciting time, especially with all of the new estates and developments happening in the area, and
there's
just
a lot
in
of choice.
Traralgon.
There is a lot when we start thinking like this now, and you think about all the different land subdivisions scattered around the Gippsland area. Well, people do actually have choice. They don't have to choose a 6 or 650 square metre block. They can look far and wide and say, well, that actually might suit us better. To do something a bit different.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially with it all being within a feasible and relatively close proximity to a major town like Traralgon. It's not that hard to make that tree change and to move out and have that fresh air. Or if you wanted that more suburban route, you could easily move to Traralgon. And I guess there are only so many established houses here. With the market booming, you're going to have to build at some point. So
Absolutely.
Exciting.
Yeah. We're a bit spoiled here where you can actually go and build a brand new house, a shiny new house, and you are still walking distance from the centre of town. You think of any, that urban sprawl of Melbourne.
It's getting further and further out.
Isn't it? Whereas, around here, whether it be Traralgon, Warragul, Druin, you can build a brand new house for what I consider to be a reasonable price and not be all that far from town and still have all the amenities.
Yeah, it's just perfect. When building a new home, I'm sure figures come into play, no matter what stage you're at. What is the process of having your new home valued, and how do you find out whether your investment was worth it?
So if someone's built a house and they're wondering whether they've overcapitalised in that venture, we do often get appraisals on properties that are, they're barely moved in. And you do sometimes have to wonder, are they just proud of what they built? And they're there to show us, and we appreciate nice houses, so we don't mind. Or are they genuinely a little bit concerned that, if circumstances change and I'm going to sell in the next 12 months, is this house actually worth what I've put into it? So it's just a case of, talking to us, just getting an appraisal done. And we can obviously look at what you built, marry that up with comparable sales and tell you where it sits in the current market. Yeah.
Okay, so it's that simple as getting in touch.
Yeah, I actually think it's a great question because I'm surprised more people don't do it. And in fact, my next appointment is exactly that.
Okay.
There you go.
Yeah, they've given me a figure of where they think it's worth. I'm at this stage not even sure who built the home, but I know it's very nice. But exactly where Matt's coming from, I'm not sure if they're pretty keen to show it off or
they're just wondering, curiosity's sake.
And it doesn't matter either way.
Yeah,
Like it doesn't matter either. We're only going to give them an honest opinion appraisal of what we see. So, and we get to see some magnificent homes. You know, that's what's such a fantastic part of what we do is our every day is different. And some of the properties that we get to see around Gippsland are quite incredible. Quite incredible.
And sometimes there will be a shortfall in terms of, you know, they built a house with all the bells and whistles and they've, you know, invested a lot of capital into it. Sometimes, you know, there might be a small discrepancy between, you know, what it costs them and what it's worth in the current market. But that dissipates within 2 years of ownership. So it's really only if you were going to build it and then, you know, sell it immediately after, which is not most people's intent. Usually if someone's owned a house and built it, you know, 2, 3, 4, 5 years ago, they're almost always in front because, you know, inflation, cost of building, it never stays completely flatlined. It gradually increases as the years go on. So as long as they've held it for a little bit of time.
It's hard to explain at the time, but it's a fact.
Yeah,
exactly
correct.
what Matt's saying, it's a fact.
Yeah.
And once you've done your landscaping, you've made it look lived in and you've got your beautiful furniture around, well, it's a fact.
Yeah. Yeah, if you're going to build your nice new home, I mean, it's never going to be cheaper in 2 years than it is today. So
Exactly. And do you often get people coming and building a home as an investment, as something that they can flick and build again?
Yep. Yeah, we get, I've just sold one down in the Rise estate where that was a couple from Melbourne and they purely built that house. He worked construction, so he was fairly savvy and she had a keen eye for interior design and styling and those things. So they were a good team in that regard.
Yeah, that sounds great.
So they should be on the block or something.
Yeah.
They got the brief right. They met what the market demands, and therefore they sold it in a relatively short period of time and got a great price.
Yeah.
However, if someone was more, I guess, less experienced, they might fumble with some of the design where it doesn't appeal to the wider market, and then it might be a bit niche, and then it can be harder to sell, and maybe they don't actually turn it into a profitable exercise. But there's definitely people that sometimes repeatedly go and build new houses purely as an investment and sell them as soon as the keys are handed over. Yep. Yeah.
That's happened for years. That sort of concept has happened. So I find it very interesting.
Yeah, it would be interesting to see the different clients that that come through to you and that you speak with and their different walks of life. How often would you say you encounter first home buyers who go the build route first up versus buying established?
Very, very good point, because if you asked that question 6 months ago, they were not going down that track. But with the pricing locally of where it's heading, that is now where they're being pushed to with volume builders, where they can potentially get a block of land and build for probably not a lot more than what an established home is going to cost. So all of a sudden, the first home buyers come back into the market.
Yeah.
But the exciting thing for that is that they turn into second home owners and then third home owners.
Exactly.
Again, it's part of their stepping stone.
And they have a taste for building already, so then building their forever home, their third.
And they'll learn along the way. They'll make a few mistakes, but they won't be huge mistakes, but they'll learn and then they'll just improve on those as they go forward.
Yeah, really interesting. The market seems like it is constantly in flux. Is that part of the challenge and the excitement for you guys, is trying to read that and stay on top of it all?
The market is a living, breathing thing. If you think about it that way, it's it's not only just supply and demand, and it's not just interest rates, and it's I think fundamentally the way we go through these decades where what people place as being important in their homes and where they live, that changes, and the demographics change. As Al mentioned, the hospital has had a major impact on our area in terms of the types of people that are moving here and what they want in a home. Culturally, we all have different priorities in a home, and it's interesting to watch.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you guys so much for coming in and chatting with us, and I'm looking forward to touching base in a couple of months and see where the market is then.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Thanks very much.
My pleasure.